Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the World of Sasquatch. Today, we are here to discuss, well, of course, what the forest people want to bring through, but there's a very poignant issue I believe they want to discuss. I've just been getting images, I haven't actually heard words. While we were listening to the previous episode, you would see it as number 7. This should be number 8 for episode-wise. I could feel that they strongly wanted to come through once we re-listened to the previous points they were making in the other episode. So, I'm not sure how long they'll want to speak. In fact, I don't even know which ones are around. I think it's Seymour and Fuma, I believe. Okay. I think it's Seymour. Yeah, that's who it is. And then Fuma and his brothers Morak. Oh, Morak's not here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, even my jaws are hurting a little bit. Let's see. All right. I gotta sit back. This is a little uncomfortable. Okay. All right. I'm gonna take those off. There. Try not to break this thing. All right. Alright, wobbly bench. My points today will be very brief, given the state of emotional distress that has been forged out of not only past fires but current purgings or transmutations and transconfiguring of energies. The points I make are this: there is one in your society now that is most prevalent, that does disturb us, but at the same time can be transmuted from within. I'm talking about your choice between sovereignty in work and in your job force, or the fork that you both have illustrated. Others may see this as well, where there is more of a struggle in your own sovereign individual or partnerships in businesses versus one that you merely just apply for. And yes, you both are correct in your assertions that it is indeed energetic. The clogged pipe, as you would say. We are here to highlight a few points about this. The reason for this is this. Long ago, when the Archontic forces set up your workforce, they wished to have people in key areas so that they could access their energies at any time for whatever agenda they had them lined up for. Sometimes your supposed spirit guides were really a part of this agenda, and various other etheric threads. Now, there are good aspects to this that your Germain has highlighted, where sometimes someone is in a place because they are guarding a doorway, a sigil, a data node, or what have you. And they just do not recognize this. But I can honestly say a majority of the time it is the other. However, there is the other aspect to this, where it appears like the other is being blocked, and this one is freely open. This was by design. It started out as a negative thing. But given the fact that humans are coming into their own power more and more, and their own sovereignty, and declaring themselves sovereign of all of these influences, these pathways are changing. And the fact that also going into a certain area in the right-hand path, let's just say, for the sake of satire and argument, that this path can also be transmuted, and as can this, even though one seems very tight and clogged and the other one seems more open. As we've said, the archons themselves, or the ones you call the archons, configured it this way, so people would be more inclined to give up over here. And in the winds of change that are coming about, this clog is being plunged, you would say, out or rooted out. And a new pipelining is taking its place. Think of a branch on a tree that is dying. Does not the tree allow the branch to fall off? In this falling off process, nutrients can seem to be withdrawn from that branch. But a new branch quickly can take its place, even in a different spot of the tree, to balance that tree. We're not saying that pathway for yourselves or anyone watching this is dying off. Oh no. It is the new energies and your own sovereign, newly formed sovereign selves that allowed this narrow pathway, the blockage, to die, and the new branch to be formed uninhibited by blockages, or a new pipeline to be built without clogs. This will then evenly match all other pipelines. But patience is warranted here. We know we have said this in the previous year where this kind of change was taking place. However, in this particular year you call 19, it is speeding up, and we also know other galactics, as you call them, have said certain things wouldn't hit till the end of the year. Granted, that is their perspective and opinion. We see it as an ongoing process of energy changes, not capped. But neither do they. They were saying by the fall solstice or equinox. We see it slightly differently, as a branch that is always growing to maturity, or a pipe that is being forged by a sovereign hammer, as you would say, meaning the path being forged by yourselves, by your own two hands, by your own 2 feet. Granted, there is still a soul mission in place, but the changing of the timelines and the ebbs and flows and currents are ever coming and going. Some garbage may come into the pipelines, and some may be taken out. This is also why this branch must be replaced. This does not necessarily mean just your endeavors specifically. This is an overall restriction on your race that people have come to find. So this does not mean that your path is stagnated. This just means that the dead weight is falling, meaning also some of your own inner work is falling away because you are doing it, and doing it well. So in this, we can entertain questions.
And who am I speaking to?
Seymour.
Seymour, okay. Thank you, Seymour. So I'm going to try and, as this conversation began, I know exactly what he's talking about. So does Chris. We kind of began a conversation, maybe without a beginning. So I'm going to try and take this conversation and broaden the discussion to get perspective of why you're saying what you're saying, if you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I do want to pointedly ask about you guys right now, and I want to ask about yourselves, the Myrmidon, the people, but yourselves. Do you guys have what we refer to as guides.
Yes, indeed. However, they are quite different than you would expect as yours to be. Like, we are guiding you for this current moment, as we do have guides that are in different frequencies. They are of what you would call hyper advanced states. You would see us as being that, but we are far from that. Currently, we are just in a few frequency notches above yourselves. The beings we speak of are dozens above yourselves. You encountered these recently on an intergalactic council meeting of the ones that exist outside of not only the construct of time, but space and dimension as well, yet they are technologically advanced and have a home world. They do not necessarily have a name to them, but they have interdimensional planets some have mistaken for light worlds, but they are not light worlds. They are the same as yourselves. They've just had a longer period of time, a much longer period of time to evolve. These are the beings that we confer with, not necessarily on a regular basis because we are also sovereign beings, but when we need assistance with particular problems that we do not know how to solve, they are also here to answer those questions.
So, and at the place at which your guides are, the guides that you normally refer to, do you have the problem that humans seem to be struggling with? Again, there was a false belief system instilled into humanity that anything beyond us, if you're talking about the spiritual realm and you're connecting with it, there's a benevolence about it. There really has to be. It's been a very hard thing for people to realize that you've got both around, that some negative are really good at masquerading a positive, that there was a negative agenda. And so, at this moment in time, many people are starting to question, their guides because it's not feeling right or whatever. So I just am curious, with your race and your relationship with your guides, is that something you have currently experienced with them? Or is there a point at which guides at a certain level tend to... It's kind of hard because I know it's duality to say benevolent or malevolent, but do they move into a realm where they're mainly just working in not a trickster way, but a more, I don't know how to say it, for your highest good way? You trust them more? I'm just curious because part of this discussion about letting the branch fall away is specifically one component of it, not all, is the concept of guides. And so I am curious about your relationship with your guides and your confidence value in them.
There are times where we have not been so confident in our guides because of the fact that they were on the wrong timeline, you would say. The ones that we interact with now, we have the utmost confidence in, but we question everything they say. You see, we do not take things verbatim. We take things with what you would say a grain of salt. We extract the good information, or the information that is applicable to the energetics now and our own feelings, even though we know these guides are at a stage where you would say where they are not corrupted. This does not necessarily mean they are not corruptible.
Okay.
So in that stage, they may be in a quantum state, but quantum applies to all vibrations everywhere. Some could take a thread that could send them down the wrong path. Others can stay here, but still have the same sets of emotions. Just because you gain a higher understanding, which has been falsely portrayed in movies and in television, to where you gain an unemotional state, this is not necessarily so. However, there are beings that have gone down that path, see they have lost something, and require the codexes to get them back. Some soul families are this way. Other ones are more for knowledge when they absorb the codexes. But for the majority, there are those that have lost certain components or never had them, and they need the understanding. Either they do not wish to incarnate in this level, or they went a different path and now wish to backtrack and then evolve further.
So this is really something important to give perspective to people, because, you know, you guys do not turn over your decision making because a guide said something.
No.
You always are going to discern it. You are going to take it in as an advisement, as something to consider, and then you must make your decision. And that is something we are learning now, and that's not going to change. So we are always going to be having to discern and do what feels for right. Because, you know, to me, I always thought about this. I'm like, well, isn't that weird? We say there's no saviors, there's no, you know, none of that going on. But the moment you start allowing someone else to trust them enough to let them make the decision instead of it really coming from your discernment, you've then re-entered back into that someone else is doing it for me.
Yes, indeed. Always make the decisions for yourself, no matter what advice you are given. Consider it more of a pathway suggestion, even if they are urging you to go along a certain path. Do not always blindly take the leap, or you would say blind faith is the term. Always use both sides of your brain and also your heart, the space as well. You're saying take the brain space and run it through here. You must have common sense, but do not blindly be a yes man to a guide. If a guide expects you to be a yes man and follow directives, they are not definitely for your highest good.
So we go back again to the beginning of the conversation, because, you know, if we look at each of ourselves as a tree, and we think about those, and I'm going to now get specific in terms so that everyone knows what I'm talking about, because I find that oftentimes it doesn't matter who you're speaking to, you're not defining words the same way, and that messes conversation. So I'm going to define some terms of how I use them, so that and ask Seymour to adapt to my language interpretation for this conversation. So I call a soul, this is my definition of what a soul is. A soul is a piece of yourself that comes into this DNA skin suit for this experience. Now, I believe that soul is a part of you, which there is a greater you, or I refer to that as your higher self, meaning a bigger piece of you. You're much greater than just the piece that's in here. And, you know, I always say you're like the Great Library of Alexandria, and there's no way that whole part of you can fit into this, so a piece. So you're like tethered to yourself, you know, in that sense. So that's where I use the word higher self, and when I speak of soul, I'm speaking of the piece that's now entered. So when we're talking about individual souls now on this earth, many of these souls have had many, many, many lives. And, you know, we always say, you know, again, that the darkness came in so long ago. They had the ability to look through space and time. They had the ability to follow what they understood to be the soul's journey. And then they come in and they try to manipulate it. But they don't just try to manipulate it right before each incarnation. There were plans set into motion so long ago that now are to become effect now. And that partly even that could be guides that have been with you for a while that now you're discovering, wait a minute, I'm not feeling good about this anymore.
You would call it tagging? In the beginning, certain souls were indeed tagged for certain paths. Some, or most, have mistaken this for soul missions and soul directives that have been overlaid over the real soul purpose. This is why certain soul missions have become blurred as of late, because it is the blurring line, which is the dying branch. You see, in this, these tags are withering and dying as well. Think of those as an infection on a tree branch that is now causing the rest to die off. It was originally a staple or a driving force. It was disguised as such. The archontic forces of the dark Anunnaki, as you called them, tagged specific souls that they knew eventually would become with what you refer to as light worker, or the varying names therein, or the varying labels therein. Those tagged individuals eventually became what you refer to as targeted individuals in the here and now. Since you are the culmination of all your different lifetimes in your genetic memory, that tag followed into the genetic memory. As we've said, do not refer to yourself as a targeted individual. We are using this as an example. This started way back in the day, you would say, when the invading forces were in this system. They could think on a multi-dimensional level and actually also glance through time to see how that soul would end up. Stupid them would think that we have tagged them, now they are on our path. We have redirected the river. No, the new energies, your own sovereign energies plus the changing energies around you, which is mostly you, fording this river and allowing the original flow to reassert itself. See, you have the tagged timeline and you have the original that keeps going forward. The tagged one is the dying branch along with the infectious wound, and the rest is carrying forward, which is your true soul mission. Some of which, what he has seen in people's sessions, were also not only the tagged soul mission, but the true one intertwined. Since at the same time, the tag is intertwining with your soul mission and being transmuted, things also have gone according to plan because these beings were lured into a false sense of security by being allowed to tag these individuals, so that the tag was transmuted and reverberated back through a string back to their original sources of whence they came.
So I want to bring this again to your race, and also, if you wish to speak of others, because it seems to me that when the attempt to change the river, was occurring, it was much bigger than the individual human soul. They had to actually not just go after them, but they would have to either bring in guides that really weren't meant to be their guides, or corrupt the guides that they had to change their temperament. So I am curious, because you're kind of at that guide level, how have you guys been affected by this tagging? And then comment about what I'm saying about how this went into other levels as well.
It was actually elements of the two, where some beings did become corrupted and became what you call dark handlers. Other times, they were that to begin with. In the case of yourselves, it was the latter, I am sorry to say. In the cases of ourselves, several of our people have been tagged and turned into these dark handlers, but now are either stepping out of these particular roles, or they are being quarantined by the rest of our people in an attempt to heal them. This is happening currently with our own people. There have been several Anakam elders as well as descendant lineage that have fallen under both categories. We are attempting to correct this. Also, we are helping to point out when people are surrounded by false guides, or guides as we have aforementioned. Think of it this way. Think of your angelic stories for a moment. The concept of a guardian angel or a main guide. I wish to state now, there is no such thing. The concept is totally false. Because, think of it this way, there is no main guide. You have teachers for the given moments in time, for the parts of the river you are currently on or trying to ford. Teachers to get you and help you get to a certain spot. If you have any that wish to push you into a certain area that is not supposed to be, that is not necessarily evil. That could be somebody that is overzealous or frustrated or slightly impatient and wishes to put you in a certain area you might not be comfortable in. Or you have the story of the guardian angel, of which you all have sigils of. I am sorry to say this story was forged by what you call the overage of darkness or the dark Anunnaki. They placed themselves as these guides and worshipped ones, as some have called them. These dark ones have put themselves in these positions to get you to trust them over the periods of time, not just this lifetime, but back from the very, very beginning. They would be the angels of mythology with the wings, you see. They show themselves as higher when they are anything but. The beings that actually are essentially higher are the ones that we deal with, and they do not delegate themselves as your main anything at all.
So the real, where this started to become really, really complicated then, again, we're just trying to give you a historical perspective of all this, is the fact that there was free will. And free will was meant to be honored. And that means, obviously, free will of humans. It could be free will of guides and other races. And so it's one of the reasons I'm just like, we just shouldn't judge people, because, everybody can get themselves into a way where they are maybe trusting things that really aren't necessarily for the highest good. They really are tricksters, or they really are. But if in your free will you really incorporate that in, you could be a very benevolent person yourself, but you are following a potentially a doctrine or something that really is for another agenda, not even for what you think it's for. You know what I mean? What it's all about. And this could have began, however your life's going on right now. If you've been one of those people that have come in and come in and come in, this could have been planned out so many lifetimes ago, again, steering you to where you are. So this is why it becomes, in my opinion, so complicated with even guides who themselves may not realize that they are not, for the ones that were, let's say, corrupted and don't even recognize a corruption, they could really be following something that to their heart they're trying to be caring, they're trying to be, and they don't even see it.
Yes, this is a true statement. In the case of both of you, given one we will not mention here for the sake of credibility, he was unfortunately the opposite of that. He knew what he was there to do and played the role to its hilt, or that expression to its hilt, you would say, shifting from form to form as the situation required, a false face. In several situations, you are also correct, where they do not know that they have been corrupted. Say when the M house fell, for instance, those particular beings that were within it did not even realize that there was a corruption going on, nor would they have, given the frequency differential. Now they do, and they can learn from this. However, again, the opposing side is the being that I am mentioning, that has been around him from the very beginning and has changed his face numerous times to accommodate different scenarios in order to lead to and down that diseased branch.
And so I think, again, trying to give perspective of how this has affected all of us, your race, us, everyone else, and doing all of this, as much as we tell everyone, and I guess I can see a perspective of how people would say, wow, they're just so negative. They just talk about, the negative. And we're never just talking about the negative for no purpose. We want people to become aware so that they can look at things and start to move away and gain their sovereignty. You have to become aware of what's going on in order to, because of free will, make that free will choice that if this is real, I don't want it. If this is really a possibility, that's not really who I am or what I want. But you've got to know, you've got to be aware. And why I say this is that I actually I don't have the fear. I believe that the knowledge and awareness is of greater benefit than any short-term fear. I do believe that the knowledge and awareness will provide a greater outcome than any short-term fear that some of this information we say will provide. But I actually, if you can imagine plans being put into place for 500,000 years, and here you are in that stream, not knowing, and then all of a sudden between the years of 2017 and now, you woke up and saw the light, and then all of a sudden you're like doing something about it, and it's blowing the darkness mind. So this is what the Great Awakening is. And if you were other races out in the cosmos watching all of this, it looks like magic. How in the world could these beings that have been these souls that have been so oppressed for so long, so much how can they all of a sudden wake up just like that and start their sovereign path again? It is a miracle. This is the miracle. It is a miracle to see. So I want to give that perspective, and even for your own people that maybe, were so lost that you're like, wow, they're just boom, waking up. Because, it is actually more positive. It is actually like we are the miracle that we were waiting for. People are. And in order for these changes, for the house to fall or whatever that's going on out there, there had to be a pretty significant, energetic, sovereign burst of energy from people who may not even realize that they're doing it, that they were ready and wanted the change.
Because they wished the change so strongly within their heart spaces that they changed the very fabric of the cosmos, as even some galactic races knew it to be, revealed things that were thought to be unrevealable. In this case, it is no different. You declared your sovereignty, therefore it shocked and awed, let's just say, all areas of the spectrum, including the dark beings that were around you, when you kept insisting that certain things were for your highest good, and say a few of them did not insist on this and were against this, and you kept doing so. You shocked them to the point where they began to try to dampen you. In this will occur if these beings are surprised by your rate of evolution. They will attempt to dampen this for not only their own safety, but for their own control factors as well. This is not true of all galactic races. I am specifying as to certain dark entities. In this shock and awe went through your system, because it was not just you that reflected this change, but the whole of humanity did, or most of humanity reflected this change. For a split second, almost everyone on your planet wanted change. This is what collapsed the three-house system and that facade that was in place. The next step is focusing on individual premises at a time, certain issues that are, you would say, hot and button topics in your society. Once you conquer these walls, in the effect that you evolve past them, you will continue to shock and awe the galactic community to the point where they will even feel safe, at least some of them will feel safe, to give face-to-face contact in particular time intervals of their choosing.
Well, yeah, that's good. And I keep, reiterating, it is fine to make judgments. I will accept this type of behavior around me. I will not accept this type of behavior around me. You're not judging a soul or a higher self when you decide you will or will not tolerate certain behaviors around you, okay? You're not condemning the soul. You're just saying, no, this is not going to work for me. And if it means I need to be away from that person, or people that have those same behavior tendencies, that's not judging a soul. I just need you guys to get that. But there is a bit of an overall judgment that's going on that I personally would like to see temper down. And because there is, I know there needs to be patience. You've talked about that and everything, but there is a, when you feel you're in the muck of it so bad, and you're not seeing people around you that are mirroring the same struggle, let's say, you tend to want to. It's natural. You tend to want to blame them. You tend to want to say, well, anybody that is actually moving and progressing is somehow having to go through this. So if you're having a great life, and if nothing, you're holding me back. But I'm like, but somewhere on a soul level, like you guys were saying, there needed to be a mass agreement for change. And so even though somebody on the outside may not be displaying some of the struggling that you're displaying, it doesn't mean that they're not growing. And there are some that aren't, but I think it's hard to tell. It's just like it's hard to tell, it's been hard to tell which guide's been on your side and which guide hasn't. That's been hard to tell. And so you've had to go through all of this, and now you have to just kind of look at yourself and say, well, maybe I don't actually see this from a high enough perspective to really see the mass changes going on, and I'm being too hard on people. So, I just want to tell people or get your perspective of how important it is to, that's almost like falling into a trap. Don't go there. Focus on yourself. Focus on what you like and dislike. Focus on being around those, the people that you wish to be around on. Focus your energies about that, and then just let this go. Don't get hung up in it. And I don't know, I feel that's important.
There are some people that love to play the role of the victim and then burn you in the end. There are others that actually are the victim that play the role of the perpetrator, at least from many perceptions and perspectives. Say your religious community, for instance, that by standard have empowered the Dark Anunnaki and the AI precepts and the reptilian precepts. They, by far, have been victims of the system through multiple incarnations, tagged, if you will, for, you would say, cattle, or branded as such, and have incarnated as worshipers over and over and over again, because those particular frequencies and wavelengths are applicable to the Dark Anunnaki. And they continue to reuse those same crowds of people over and over and over again. Are these people empowering the darkness? Yes, you can say that on one hand. But on another hand, you can say they know nothing else because they have been whipped or have self-whipped themselves into a servitude and non-sovereign viewpoint. Does this make them at fault? On rare occasions, yes, when they know that they are doing that or heading this process. If they do not, they are just as innocent as those that have taken the dark sigils into their own property and not known it, such as certain branding in that area. There is a distinct difference between the cattle driver and the cattle. We are not saying see yourself as either one. We are using an analogy to show the difference.
Yeah, so that's hard because, you could take the stance of saying all souls should know better and they made a choice. And you can get very hard with that stance, but, if you've really been put through the ringer and really been like this, it takes a lot, I think, to really try to break out of something again. Like you're saying, it's lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. This is not just this lifetime. These problems that we are in or go through again many many lifetimes of conditioning and stuff like that. So I think it is important to try and give some perspective to, and actually the blame game becomes a bit of a distraction. You get caught up in a blame game, and thus now you're not growing anymore.
Sometimes it is applicable to point blame, as you would say, if it is the puppeteer. In the case of the puppets, majority of the time, they are the ones that have been recycled over and over and over again. Now, are there a few within them that are more the driving force for the programming? Yes, indeed. However, in those not so rare cases, but in those cases, those are the ones that need the, you would say, transmuting most of all, to where their soul is unhinged from the branding, you see. When the brand forgers or makers or the blacksmiths of this created that system, they needed people within it to enforce the rule. Think of a priest, not necessarily an innocent one. I'll make the distinction. Think of a priest calling people to worship a being outside of themselves. In some cases, that priest is that knowing agent that is giving that energy over to the dark master. However, in a lot of cases, they do not know they are doing this because they themselves have been recycled in that role on that stage over and over and over again. They needed people within that community because they could not control the overall. So they needed some of your kind to help reinforce these rules. It is not just the church that does this, it is within all religious and worship constructs.
So I'm going to give a current example, and apparently it's very current, that is my understanding of a good example of how people, let's say even those that have been in that religious mindset over and over again, how are they breaking out of it? How are they growing out of this? And I'm going to try to give a very specific example of how I feel this occurs with people in general. So you have, again, giving perspective that we've not just been growing out of this in the last few years. We've been growing out of this for the last few hundreds of years. But right now, interesting things are coming up all the time, be it social media brings it up, or be it the news brings it up, on, let's say, political and social correctness. Okay, I'm going to use that area. So there, rightly so, have been times when people can say, wait a minute, this isn't right. You're honoring and putting people on pedestals that actually hated fellow human beings. It could have been related to their hatred and subservience of other races, for example, black people in the United States or whatever. And people are saying, wait a minute, this isn't right, protests or whatever, and they're getting this awareness. But what will always happen, is that to me, darkness, which tries to infiltrate anything, they may try to use things as a for and against, but sometimes people are just really becoming aware that, no, I don't feel that's right anymore. No, people should not be feeling. So it also gives people an opportunity to grow. But darkness is always going to take it to the next level. It's like they can't just cause a problem, here. They're going to take it to a next level, and you're going to start seeing social media examples of now something that's extreme, and people are going to go, oh, for the love of, what? This is ridiculous. I can't even believe that this is being discussed about. So I'll give an example. So today is 4th of July here. We're actually recording this on 4th of July. And, a particular company actually put out a shoe that was called the Betsy Ross shoe. And they had an old flag on it, one of the original colonist type of flags. Somebody who's known stepped out and thought that is racist, and Nike should be whatever, and there was an ulterior motive, whatever. And now, even in the state that we are in, the governor has now decided that a big Nike facility that would have brought lots of jobs or whatever to people. He will not allow that corporation now to set this up. So I laugh because I'm like, really? We can't, even for those people who want to honor the ideas of this type of country being put together. I'm not talking about any corruption of it, but the original ideas of freedom or whatever, and they look at an old flag. Now we're not allowed to because somehow some of those people involved then may have owned slaves. Really? And I think many people now are looking at another example of someone charging a racism, but they're looking at it now and they're going, this has gone a bit too far.
This is why these events have been allowed, you see, in order to bring them to the public limelight. The governor, which you mentioned, and this other individual who has been quite prolific in your media as of late with his boastful, as you would say, assertions of life, are what you would call not only a false flag, but these two individuals are of the aforementioned agents that I have spoken about, you see, like with the churches and the dark masters of the Anunnaki needed priests, they needed agents, they needed distractors, they needed refuters, they needed skeptics, they needed people that were overly religious, they needed people that were not aware enough, too aware, divide and conquer. They needed the agents amongst society, the inborns, also you would say. These two men that you have mentioned that were bringing about this issue of the flag, both against and the public for, you see. This is the dividing strategy that they were always meant to play. This is why these two men were brought up on your news program today, and the other will still continue to be an irritant within your society for at least another year or two, to show people this particular mirror or this particular blemish on your society. This is not denigrating a person or a race or a soul. This is saying this is the role this person came in to play to show your society all the idiocracy that is going on behind the scenes. This is what he is meant to do. He was programmed at what you would consider to be one of the highest levels in your government, and he was put out there with a false identity, a false set of memories, and he was put out there in order to bring these things to light, not at the behest of the ones that programmed him. Oh no. Sources like ourselves, other galactics, positive and benevolent galactics, ones that have your highest good at heart, and pure source energy itself, wanted to bring this all into the limelight, but in a way that was most applicable to your psyche at this current moment in time. These types of events on your news will continue to gain intensity. This train will continue to gain speed and intensity with these new energies until you recognize, hey, this is actually a trick, this is a distraction. What is it that they are distracting us from? Are they distracting us from our own self-growth, or are they distracting us from the world around us, or both?
Yeah, and it happens because I think a lot of people in this particular instance are not comfortable with it. They're like, this whole conversation, I'm getting uncomfortable with this because I think this is silly. They don't even know what to think about their own thoughts. People don't even know what to think because it's like, this is how you conquer and divide. Well, racism is serious. This is a serious issue. Another human being not being treated like another human being should be treated. You know, this is serious. So am I supposed to take this because racism is serious and whatever, or it's actually feeling a little silly to me? People are actually having to now look at themselves and they're having to say, you know, wait a minute, could racism now be being used as a tool? And how dare they take something so serious and then try to manipulate people with it, because how dare I not take racism seriously? So if I'm taking racism seriously and I see this on the news, well, anything that someone's accusing as racism, it must be, and it's not.
Yes, indeed. They are using this as a crutch in order to turn the scales into another for and against by saying either white lives matter or black lives matter. We say all lives matter everywhere, across the board, you would say. They're using this to divide you along racial lines once again, but there are a lot of people that are not falling for the racial thing. So they are bringing in other distractions, such as some of the hot button topics that you see today, such as your gun control, your Medicare. All these things that you thought were precious to you are being pushed to the forefront by Source and by us and various other races to show you. Do you really need these issues of for and against in your lives? Other people get sucked into them, while other people stand outside of that arena or that theater of puppets and see it for what it is. And theater of puppets do not just apply to politics, as I have aforementioned. They apply to this entire system. It is not just politics, even though it does involve politics for the most part. It involves all of these false flags. It involves all of these puppets and puppeteers that are within this system, that are being presented to you on a stage that is most comfortable to you, which is your television. Granted, the cabal is showing it to you in hopes you'll be distracted. We allow certain things to continue, hoping you learn what you do not wish to have in your lives and how you wish to proceed in your own life.
Exactly. And so slowly but surely, people that are watching this are beginning to question. Now, obviously, for some, this may be like, isn't it obvious? And for others, it's not so obvious, and they're just in the beginnings of pondering what's really going on, or, am I going to pay attention to this, or am I going to feel guilty for not paying attention to this? Because that's part of it too. It's kind of a very important topic of the complications of it all, and relating back to what we were saying before, how many thousands and thousands of years has this type of steering and manipulation been actually being done? But again, people are waking up, and people are asking for mass change, and now it's about really getting you to know yourself and know what you do want and what you don't want, in your lives. So I relate again this back, because this is kind of a talk with the Sasquatch, so I always like to bring in the Sasquatch. Can you tell me in the history that you know of, your race, even if you talk about not yourselves, but your understanding of your elders' history, did they go through similar things?
Not exactly the same way you did, but we went through several things. At least the ones that remained here went through oppressive periods of loneliness, periods of needing to deal with the issues of ourselves, PTSD you could call it, not to the level that the human race has been subjugated within the farming and within the overall mental stress and mental abuse. We did not go through as much, but we did go through it in ages past. This is also another reason you see us hanging out underground, because some of the thought forms that not only humanity projects, but these archontic forces, or remaining archontic forces project, are blocked by certain types of stone and also some mental disciplines that we have undergone. The mental disciplines more or less would be meditational states and higher vibrational states. Granted, not all of this are Anakim, but we are of the Anakim lines, and we do have several elders that are helping several of our kind relearn some of these ancient practices that kept out a lot of these negative thought forms. We understand your kind are projecting them as well, but as we have said, your kind has been programmed to do so over incarnation after incarnation. So strategies were devised in order to protect our own kind from your kind's thought forms towards us and thought forms towards other elementals and other galactic races over history. These thought forms are waning the more gets grounded into your earthly Akashic and is channeled upward through all of you. This is the premise of grounding information into the earthly Akashic each time you channel and bring it through, because then it grounds it and spreads it through what is left of the earth grid. Not necessarily the archontic energy collectors, but the healthy chakra points along the earth, these so-called holy sites or higher vibrational sites that are interdimensional and are being restored. These will bring this information out along with data nodes and other galactic sources that have been unnamed thus far.
Okay, and then when we first started doing this series, we were talking about all of the different spiritual places that people in your race or cousins to your race, how they were all over the place. Some could speak in telepathy, some could not. They had forgotten this, that, and the other. So I am curious then, what you're doing for your own. So the races that don't currently have telepathy, okay, let's say that level, which I guess to me I would want to say we're more equivalent to the human level, I guess is what I would want to say. Mm-hmm. Are those part of your race, are they having the same struggles that we did? Like, for example, if you guys try to come into their society and sit down, are they struggling with the same things, like seeing you as a savior, or seeing, believing everything you said instead of discerning what works for them? I'm just curious how they're adapting with persons like yourselves that are showing up as guides.
Indeed, you have encountered this yourselves in your state of North Carolina, where there were Sasquatch, as you call us, that were depending more on signs, symbols, and sign language versus telepathy. And a member of the Anakam showed up next to them. The instinct was to bow, because some of them feel that beings such as ourselves have gotten to a particular stage of godhood. And this is a form of, you would say, de-evolution. Some of our people de-evolved into this state, very much like your own people did after being captured or isolated on Earth for too long. Others of your Viking giants or former M House have de-evolved into such states as cannibalism and mental harassment, as well as have some of the apish or Sasquatch kind, the ones you know of as trolls or face eaters, or several other species have fallen into this particular category. Now, the telepathy can be restored by a simple realization of it, very much like the one you encountered in North Carolina, the grandfather of the tribe there that saw you as an equal friend, though he was in a different frequency, then spotted dear Telnorskus at the time and saw him more or less like you would view Buddha or Christ. This is a concept we wish to change. We are all equals and do not wish to be worshipped or bowed to, even if it is from our very own kind.
And that's important for people to understand, that, the same struggles, maybe not to the nth degree for us, but the same conceptual struggles happen to all kinds of races and this, that, and the other. So, in some instances where our struggles are the same. So, but anyway, so this has been a really interesting discussion that we've kind of had today. There was one, and I can't remember what it was, that I wanted to bring in. So we get back to the concept of being trees, and it's an interesting thing, because in all of the dynamics that are happening right now, there's so many different dynamics that are going on. It really is an intricate tapestry, and you have people that are supposed to be at the same vibratory place. They're meant to show up and come together in this lifetime. They may not be in sync. Then there has to be a change. Then a change of the way the soul may function or move, to either change or to do what they intended. People again are seeing changes in guides, or change, and especially changes in perspective on what guides are all about, or what they should be about. And so all of this now is really heavily coming back to people and making them as a sovereign being, even on an energetic level, if they don't know it, reevaluate everything. Just reevaluate everything, and maybe decide a new way of doing something. And I do want to bring up the workforce, because I do believe that there can be great importance of taking your frequency. And I know a lot of people want to become their own entrepreneur, and I'm not saying that can't happen, but people are struggling. I can't seem to get things going on my own. I'm back in the regular workforce. But I think there's a lot to be said about transmuting things at the workforce level, that you can take your energies and start to create a change that's really going on in your just little area, and you're not being true to yourself. You are being true to yourself, and then you continue to still do your other things. I think it's a balancing act of all of those aspects of life.
Yes, indeed, there are truths in what you have said, that you can transmute the energies within these particular workforces. The same goes for within the religious communities, where there are people that are of a certain vibration that have been inserted into those environments in order to counterbalance the others. Now, we are not saying this is forever for yourself, and we are not saying that it will take long to be self-entrepreneurial, as you would say, but there are energies that can be transmuted and can be helped, even with the very people that you are around that would seem like they are, how shall I put it, average Joes. But remember, all of your race's roots run as deep as the tallest tree in your society. You are all one. You're a part of the same root structure. You come from the same places and in the same environments. Yes, there are those that have been programmed against you, but there are also those that have come in your favor, and you are those to help counterbalance these different environments. We're not saying your situation is permanent. Once the dead weight has fallen completely away and that new branch has re-solidified itself, you will see a change in having to enter the workforce at all. But no, these opportunities and these energies only come along once in a great while in order to insert yourselves in places that you are meant to be completely.
So don't feel bad about yourself if you are not quite as independent as you'd like to be. Don't go there. Be your true authentic self and take your current energies wherever you go, and think about the transmutation that you may possibly be a positive effect around these other people. Try to gain a broader perspective as you still pursue your entrepreneurial type of work. So again, not patience forever. But it's hard when you try to look at the finish line, and you're looking at the finish line, and you're looking and you're dreaming, like we say, and you just can't quite get there fast enough. But it's hard. I hope next time when we speak, I'd like to speak, so I'm putting out this request right now, and I'll give you final words for today. But I hope the next time that we speak, we mentioned this on last show. I really think it would be good for people to understand what's been going on that they haven't seen. What wars have been won that what support has been being given in ways that they're not seeing it. So that people are seeing a broader picture, so they don't quite feel alone and they understand the process and the struggles that are going on in the greater galactic community that also have to be transmuted along with what needs to be transmuted here. So I'm hoping when we speak again, we can broaden, and you can give us perspective on what your race, the Anakam race, has been up to out there, in the cosmos, and give it just in general, working with other races and what's going on.
Yes, indeed. That is a very broad topic, a very elaborate topic about what is going on with these other races and the wars that have been fought. And yes, we would be willing to come through on a different episode of this program to discuss these things. But I will touch on this, There are so many wars and battles that have been fought. So many that you have never heard of, fought by people you've never heard of. Even your own kind have fought in wars that you've never heard of, and battles you've never heard of, and against enemies you've never heard of, and hopefully you never will, except when the history eventually is revealed to all of you. As we've said, your roots run deep, run deeper in history than you ever thought possible, alongside our people. We are cousins to each other, we are brothers and sisters to each other, and we share the same history of not only blood and battle, but of peace. This is the message I wish to convey currently. So to all of you, blessings from the beings you call Sasquatch, or the Anakim lineage, or the forest people. Thank you. Ooh. Wow. Okay. Whew. Yeah, he came in pretty strong. Seymour came in pretty strong. And also, he's advised us to help protect our home as well recently against a lot of these things, to help with that. Well, until recently, a 50-50 kind of bargain with the guides. Since they're fighting wars that we know nothing about, the way we can assist them is by keeping ourselves sovereign, protected, do inner work, and keep the house protected with various tools and various energies and various sigils. Not the ultimate protection, but in conjunction with your own inner work. That's an episode for another time. But until then, this has been an episode of The World of Sasquatch. So thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.